Agent Korthvin arrived at the Empire fleet 3 days after the battle in a ship that looked different from all the others. His vessel was black and covered with sensors that could detect things other ships could not see. Korthvin worked for Empire intelligence, and his job was to find out secrets that other species tried to hide. He had studied over 3,000 different alien cultures and had never failed to understand their technology. The intelligence agent brought with him Professor Quindal, who was the Empire's best expert on alien technology. Quindal had spent his entire life studying how different species developed tools and weapons. He had written the standard reference books that all Empire scientists used when they encountered new technology. If anyone could figure out human capabilities, it would be Quindal. Chief Security Officer Tony Martinez met the Empire agents when they docked with Dawn's Edge. Tony had been a police officer on Earth before joining the space program, and he knew how to deal with investigators who wanted information. He was polite and helpful, but he was also careful to protect anything that might be dangerous for Earth if the wrong people learned about it. Captain Ben Harrison held a meeting with his senior officers to discuss how they should handle the Empire investigation. Science specialist Diane Brown suggested that they should be completely honest about everything. She argued that hiding information would make the Empire suspicious and might lead to bigger problems later, but Tony Martinez disagreed and said they should only reveal what was absolutely necessary. Ben decided that they would cooperate with the Empire agents but would be careful about what they showed them. The humans would answer questions truthfully, but they would not volunteer information that was not requested. Ben hoped this approach would satisfy the Empire's curiosity without giving away anything that could be used against Earth. Agent Korthvin began his investigation by interviewing every member of the Dawn's Edge crew. He used advanced Empire psychology techniques to detect when people were lying or hiding information. But when he interviewed the humans, he found something strange. They seemed to be telling the truth when they said they did not fully understand their own technology. Danny Rodriguez spent hours explaining his engine modifications to Professor Quindal. Danny showed the Empire expert every component and every connection he had made. He described his thought process and explained why he had tried certain combinations. But when Quindal asked Danny to explain the theoretical principles behind his work, Danny could only shrug and say he had been guessing. This confused Professor Quindal more than anything else he had encountered in his long career. Every species he had studied developed technology by first understanding principles and then building applications. The humans seemed to do the opposite. They built things that worked and then tried to figure out why they worked. This approach should not have been successful, but somehow it was. Communications Officer Steve Chen worked with Empire linguists to translate human technical documents. The aliens were amazed by how humans described their own inventions. Human technical manuals were full of phrases like "this usually works" and "try this if the normal method fails." Empire manuals were precise and left no room for interpretation or experimentation. The Empire agents discovered that human engineering was based on something they called educated guessing. Humans would look at a problem and try solutions that felt right even if they could not prove those solutions would work. When something failed, they would try something else until they found an approach that succeeded. This method was chaotic and unpredictable, but it led to innovations that rigid Empire methods missed. Agent Korthvin reported his findings to Empire Intelligence Headquarters using encrypted communications. He told his superiors that the humans were not hiding advanced technology from some secret research program. Instead, they had stumbled upon powerful capabilities through trial and error methods that no other known species used. This made them unpredictable in ways that were both fascinating and dangerous. Dr. Patricia Lee continued treating Empire personnel who had been injured in the battle. The alien patients were surprised by human medical practices that seemed to ignore established procedures. Dr. Lee would try treatments that were not in standard medical textbooks if she thought they might help a specific patient. Her success rate was actually higher than Empire doctors achieved using their advanced equipment. The Empire agents interviewed communications specialist Greg Watson about human information systems. Greg showed them how humans organized knowledge in ways that allowed for rapid cross-referencing and creative connections. Empire databases were logical and efficient, but human systems seem designed to encourage unexpected discoveries and new combinations of existing information. Professor Quindall spent a week studying the alien artifacts that Danny had incorporated into the ship's systems. The Empire expert had seen similar materials before in archaeological sites scattered across the galaxy. These artifacts were remnants of a vanished civilization that had existed millions of years ago. No known species had ever figured out how to make the ancient technology work. The revelation that humans had successfully activated ancient alien technology was shocking to the Empire scientific community. The artifacts had been studied by the galaxy's best minds for thousands of years without anyone discovering their secrets. Yet Danny Rodriguez had made them work by connecting them to human fusion engines in ways that should not have been possible. According to established scientific principles, Agent Korthvin began to understand that human success came from their willingness to ignore expert opinions about what was possible. When Empire scientists said something could not be done, humans would try to do it anyway. When conventional wisdom declared that certain approaches would fail, humans would experiment with those approaches until they found ways to make them succeed. The Empire agents also discovered that humans shared information differently than other species. Where most alien cultures guarded their discoveries carefully, humans seemed eager to share knowledge with anyone who was interested. Human technical innovations spread rapidly through their society because individuals were rewarded for teaching others rather than for keeping secrets. Steve Chen explained to the Empire linguists that human language itself encouraged creative problem-solving. Human words often had multiple meanings that could be combined in unexpected ways. This linguistic flexibility helped humans think about problems from angles that more precise alien languages did not easily allow. Human communication promoted innovation through ambiguity rather than limiting it through precision. After 2 weeks of intensive investigation, Agent Korthvin and Professor Quindall prepared their final report for Empire leadership. Their conclusion was both simple and disturbing. Humans achieved impossible things because they refused to accept that anything was truly impossible. This attitude made them valuable allies, but it also made them completely unpredictable as enemies. The Empire agents recommended that humanity should be classified as a strategic priority species, requiring careful diplomatic handling. They suggested that the Empire should offer humans partnership rather than trying to control them. Attempting to dominate a species that could achieve the impossible through stubborn experimentation would likely lead to unpleasant surprises for the Empire. Tony Martinez watched the Empire agents prepare to leave Dawn's Edge and wondered what their investigation would mean for Earth's future. The humans had tried to be helpful and honest, but he suspected that honesty might have revealed more about human nature than would have been wise. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were different in ways that could not be easily predicted or controlled. 3 weeks after the battle that changed everything, a massive Empire diplomatic ship arrived near Dawn's Edge. The vessel was 10 times larger than any ship the humans had ever seen, and it carried the most important officials in the Galactic Empire. Admiral Zexhai contacted Captain Ben Harrison with a message that no human had ever received before. The Empire High Council wanted to meet with Earth's representatives to discuss a formal alliance. Ben Harrison found himself in a situation that no human had ever faced. He was a ship captain from Earth who had been chosen to represent his entire species in negotiations with a galactic government that ruled over thousands of worlds. Ben knew he was not qualified for this responsibility, but there was nobody else available who understood what had happened during the battle. The Empire Council chambers were enormous and filled with representatives from dozens of different alien species. Ben walked into the room accompanied by diplomatic attaché Carol Johnson, who had been hastily assigned to his crew when Earth learned about the meeting request. Carol had studied alien cultures, but she had never imagined she would need that knowledge to negotiate humanity's place in galactic politics. Strategic advisor Peter Kim joined Ben and Carol at the negotiating table. Peter had worked for Earth's government before joining the space program, and he understood how to evaluate political agreements. But the proposals that the Empire was making went far beyond anything that Earth's leaders had ever considered. The Empire was offering humanity a partnership that would make them one of the most important species in the galaxy. The Empire High Council presented their offer through Chancellor Vexthan, who was the Empire's chief diplomat. The Chancellor explained that the Empire faced threats that their conventional military forces could not handle effectively. The Vorthon Dominion was just one of several hostile powers that used advanced technologies to defeat Empire fleets. The Empire needed allies who could provide unconventional solutions to impossible problems. Ben listened to the Empire's offer and tried to understand what they were really asking for. The Empire would provide Earth with advanced technology including faster-than-light communication systems, defensive weapons, and industrial equipment that could transform human civilization. In exchange, the Empire wanted human advisors who could help them solve problems that traditional Empire methods could not handle. Carol Johnson carefully reviewed the legal documents that the Empire presented. The proposed alliance would make Earth a sovereign member of the Empire with the right to govern itself according to human laws and customs. Earth would not be subject to Empire taxation or military conscription, but would be expected to provide technical consultation and innovative thinking when the Empire faced unusual challenges. The Empire Chancellor explained that humanity's greatest value was not their current technology, but their approach to solving problems. Empire scientists followed rigid procedures that produced predictable results. Human engineers seemed to find solutions by trying approaches that logic said should fail. This unpredictability was exactly what the Empire needed to deal with enemies, who had learned to counter conventional Empire tactics. Peter Kim asked detailed questions about what kind of consultation the Empire expected from human advisors. Chancellor Vexthan provided examples of recent problems that Empire forces had encountered. Enemy fleets using adaptive shielding that could counter any known weapon. Hostile species developing faster-than-light drives that worked on principles Empire science could not understand. Ancient alien artifacts that refused to respond to conventional activation techniques. Ben realized that the Empire was essentially asking humans to be their troubleshooters for problems that stumped their best experts. The Empire had vast resources and advanced technology, but they had become limited by their own success. Their systematic approach to science and engineering made them predictable to enemies who had studied Empire methods for centuries. Humanity's chaotic creativity was the perfect counter to this predictability. Intelligence analyst Michelle Davis had been monitoring Empire communications during the negotiations. She reported to Ben that Empire military commanders were genuinely excited about the possibility of human partnership. The Empire had been fighting the same enemies using the same tactics for decades. Human involvement offered the possibility of surprising those enemies with completely unexpected strategies. The Empire made additional offers that demonstrated how seriously they took the proposed alliance. They were willing to establish joint research facilities where human and Empire scientists could work together on advanced projects. They offered to share historical databases that contained information about civilizations that had existed millions of years ago. They even suggested that humans might be able to help them understand ancient technologies that had been mysteries for centuries. Carol Johnson spent days reviewing the proposed agreement and consulting with Earth's government through faster-than-light communications. Earth's leaders were amazed by the Empire's offers, but they were also concerned about the implications. Humanity would suddenly become a major player in galactic politics, without having experience in dealing with the complex relationships between different alien species. Ben met privately with Admiral Zexhai, who had become something like a friend during their shared crisis. The Admiral confided that the Empire's military situation was more desperate than their public statements suggested. Several member species were considering leaving the Empire because they no longer believed it could protect them from external threats. The Empire needed victories that would restore confidence in their ability to govern effectively. The negotiations continued for a week as both sides worked out details of how the alliance would function in practice. The Empire agreed to respect human independence while providing access to technologies that would advance Earth's development by centuries. Humans agreed to share their problem-solving methods while maintaining the right to refuse requests that conflicted with human values. Danny Rodriguez was consulted about the technical aspects of the proposed alliance. The Empire wanted to establish joint engineering programs where human and alien scientists could work together on projects that neither could complete alone. Danny was excited by the possibilities, but he was also worried about what might happen if humans accidentally created something too powerful for anyone to control. Peter Kim negotiated specific protections for Earth's sovereignty and security. The agreement included provisions that would prevent the Empire from demanding access to human military secrets or requiring Earth to participate in conflicts that did not directly threaten human interests. The Empire accepted these limitations because they understood that human creativity worked best when humans felt free to experiment without external pressure. After 10 days of negotiations, Ben Harrison signed the first formal alliance between Earth and the Galactic Empire. The agreement made humanity a strategic partner with rights and responsibilities that no other species enjoyed. Earth would remain independent, but would also become one of the Empire's most important allies in dealing with threats that conventional military force could not handle. The signing ceremony was broadcast to every world in the Empire and transmitted to Earth, where billions of humans watched their species officially join galactic civilization. Ben felt the weight of responsibility as he realized that his small crew had accidentally changed the course of human history. They had gone from being ignored primitives to being courted as strategic assets in less than a month. As Dawn's Edge prepared to return to Earth, Ben reflected on what had happened and what it meant for humanity's future. Humans had earned their place among the stars not because they were stronger or smarter than other species, but because they were different in ways that the galaxy needed. The Empire had panicked when they encountered human capabilities not because humans were superior, but because humans were unpredictable. The galaxy would indeed never be the same, and neither would humanity. Earth was about to become part of something vast and ancient, while still maintaining its unique character. The humans who had been dismissed as primitive were now being counted on to help solve problems that had challenged the galaxy's greatest minds for thousands of years. Dr. Velthar was the smartest scientist in the Galactic Empire, and he was completely confused. He sat in his laboratory aboard the Empire science vessel and stared at sensor readings that made no sense. The data from the battle showed the human ship doing things that violated every law of physics that the Empire understood. Velthar had studied science for 200 years and had never seen anything like this. The Empire had records of technology from over 10,000 different species across the galaxy. Their databases contained information about every known form of faster-than-light travel, every type of weapon system, and every kind of defensive shield. But the human ship had used something that was not in any Empire record. The humans had somehow made their vessel exist in multiple dimensions at the same time. Velthar called his assistant Dr. Quindal, who specialized in studying primitive species. According to their records, humans were barely capable of interstellar travel. Earth had only developed fusion power 50 years ago and had only built their first faster-than-light ship 10 years ago. There was no way such a young species should have technology that surpassed Empire science. Admiral Zexhai sent urgent messages to every science station in the Empire fleet. He needed answers about what the human ship had done, and he needed them quickly. The Admiral was a military commander, not a scientist, but even he could understand that humans had capabilities that were not in their intelligence reports. This meant either their information was wrong or the humans were hiding their true technology level. On Dawn's Edge, Captain Ben Harrison was dealing with his own confusion. Danny Rodriguez had explained his modifications, but even Danny did not fully understand what had happened during the battle. The alien technology they had used was still mostly a mystery. Danny knew how to make it work, but he could not explain why it worked or how it was possible. Communications Officer Amy Collins was busy handling messages from every ship in the Empire fleet. Every Empire captain wanted to know how the small, human vessel had destroyed the Vorthon flagship. Amy was trying to explain something that she did not understand herself. The best she could do was translate Danny's technical descriptions into language that the aliens could understand. Science Officer Nancy Price was running every test she could think of on their ship's systems. Nancy had degrees in physics and engineering from Earth's best universities, but she felt like she was studying magic instead of science. The readings from Danny's modifications showed energy patterns that should not exist according to everything she had learned. Dr. Velthar received permission from Admiral Zexhai to dock with the human ship and conduct a direct examination. The Empire scientist brought his most advanced scanning equipment and a team of experts who specialized in analyzing unknown technology. Velthar was confident that close examination would reveal the secrets of human capabilities. When the Empire shuttle docked with Dawn's Edge, Jake Martinez was surprised by how the aliens looked. Dr. Velthar was tall and thin with forearms and skin that looked like blue metal. His assistant, Dr. Quindall, was shorter and covered in fur that changed colors as he moved. Both aliens wore devices that translated their speech into perfect English. Ben Harrison met the Empire scientists at the airlock and welcomed them aboard his ship. Ben was polite but careful not to reveal too much information. He knew that showing the aliens their technology might be dangerous for Earth. The Empire had been condescending toward humans, and Ben was not sure they could be trusted with human secrets. Dr. Velthar began his examination in the engine room, where Danny Rodriguez waited with his technical staff. Danny had been ordered by Ben to cooperate with the aliens, but to avoid giving away information that might be used against Earth. Danny showed the Empire scientists his modifications while trying to make them seem less impressive than they actually were. The Empire scientists set up their scanning equipment and began taking readings from every part of the human ship. Their devices could analyze materials at the atomic level and map energy flows through complex systems. But when they scanned Danny's modifications, their equipment gave readings that made no sense. The alien technology integrated into the human systems seemed to exist in states that their science said were impossible. Dr. Quindall ran the scan results through the Empire's most powerful computers. The analysis showed that the human modifications created localized distortions in space and time. The technology somehow allowed matter to exist in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. This type of capability was theoretical even for the most advanced Empire scientists. Medical officer Dr. Patricia Lee was treating wounded Empire personnel who had been evacuated from damaged ships. The aliens were amazed by human medical techniques that seemed primitive, but were actually very effective. Dr. Lee used simple tools and procedures that worked better than some advanced Empire medical technology. The aliens began to realize that human simplicity might actually be a form of sophistication. As the day progressed, more and more Empire officers came aboard Dawn's Edge to see the humans for themselves. Each interaction revealed that humans approached problems differently than other species. Where Empire scientists followed rigid procedures, humans seemed to improvise and adapt. Where Empire engineers built systems according to established principles, humans modified and experimented. Dr. Velthar reported his findings to Admiral Zexhai and the Empire High Command. The humans had somehow combined their own primitive technology with artifacts of unknown origin. The result was a hybrid system that could manipulate fundamental forces in ways that Empire science considered impossible. Even more disturbing was the fact that the humans seemed to have achieved this through trial and error, rather than theoretical understanding. The Empire scientists spent 3 days aboard Dawn's Edge and left more confused than when they arrived. They had detailed scans of every human system, but they could not explain how any of it worked. The alien artifacts that the humans had incorporated were made from materials that did not appear in any Empire database. The energy signatures were unlike anything seen in known space. Admiral Zexhai faced a problem that no Empire commander had ever dealt with before. A species that appeared primitive had demonstrated capabilities that surpassed the most advanced Empire technology. The humans claimed they did not fully understand their own systems, which made them even more unpredictable and potentially dangerous. The Empire fleet's senior officers held emergency meetings to discuss what they should do about the humans. Some officers wanted to demand that Earth share their technology immediately. Others suggested that the Empire should be more careful about how they dealt with humans. A few officers were starting to think that maybe the Empire had underestimated human potential from the very beginning. Back on Dawn's Edge, Ben Harrison realized that his crew had accidentally revealed something that would change humanity's relationship with the galaxy forever. They were no longer just another primitive species that the Empire could ignore. They had become something that demanded respect and possibly something that other species would fear. Jake Martinez looked out at the Empire fleet and wondered what would happen next. The aliens were no longer treating humans as inferior beings. But they were also no longer treating them as friends. The battle had saved Empire lives, but it had also raised questions that might lead to bigger problems in the future. Commander Jake Martinez stood at the front window of his ship and watched something he had never seen before. Two huge fleets of alien ships were fighting each other in the dark space ahead of him. The explosions looked like bright flowers blooming and dying in the cold emptiness. His small human ship called Dawn's Edge was hiding far away from the battle but close enough to see everything that was happening. Jake had been exploring space for 3 years now, and this was the first time he saw real alien warships. The bigger fleet belonged to something called the Galactic Empire. They had made contact with Earth just 6 months ago. The Empire told humans they were a small and weak species that did not matter much in the galaxy. The other fleet was completely unknown to Jake and his crew. Lieutenant Amy Collins sat at her station and listened to the alien radio messages. She was the best language expert Earth had sent to space. Her computer was working hard to translate the strange sounds coming from both fleets. The Empire ships were calling the enemy fleet the Vorthan Dominion. Amy could hear fear in the Empire, voices even through the translation. Captain Ben Harrison walked up behind Jake and put his hand on his shoulder. Ben was 50 years old and had spent most of his life in Earth's space program. He was calm most of the time, but Jake could see worry in his eyes now. The Empire had 3 times more ships than the enemy, but they were still losing the fight. Empire ships were exploding one after another, while the Vorthan ship seemed to take no damage at all. Navigation Officer Lisa Turner called out from her station. Her voice was tight with stress. She had been tracking both fleets for the past hour and the news was getting worse. The Empire flagship was taking heavy damage. Their shields were failing and their weapons were not working against the enemy ships. Lisa had never seen technology like what the Vorthans were using. The Vorthan ships looked different from anything in Earth's databases. They were dark and curved like giant sea creatures. When Empire weapons hit them, the energy just seemed to bend around their hulls. The Vorthan weapons were bright purple beams that cut through Empire shields like they were made of paper. Each beam that hit an Empire ship caused explosions that tore the vessel apart. Jake watched an Empire battleship try to ram one of the Vorthan vessels. The huge Empire ship was 3 times bigger than the enemy, but when it hit the Vorthan ship, something strange happened. The Empire ship just bounced off like it had hit a wall. Then the Vorthan ship fired once and the Empire battleship broke into pieces. Amy suddenly stood up from her station and turned to face Captain Harrison. She had been listening to a new transmission and her face was pale. The Empire Admiral was sending out emergency calls to anyone who could hear them. They were asking for help from any ship in the area. The Admiral was offering payment and protection to anyone who would help save his remaining ships. Ben looked at Jake and then at the rest of his crew. The Dawn's Edge only had 40 people on board. They had some weapons, but nothing compared to what they were seeing in the battle. Earth had sent them to explore and make peaceful contact with other species. Fighting a war was not part of their mission. Ben knew that getting involved would probably mean death for his entire crew. But Ben also knew something else. He had spent his whole life believing that humans should help others when they could. The Empire had not been very friendly to Earth, but they were still living beings who were about to die. Ben had watched thousands of Empire crew members die already. He could not just fly away and let thousands more die when he might be able to help. Chief Engineer Danny Rodriguez came up to the bridge and reported to Ben. Danny was a young man who loved to fix things and make them work better. He had been working on their ship's engine systems for weeks. Danny told Ben that he had made some changes to their fusion drive that might give them an advantage. He was not sure if his changes would work, but he wanted to try them. Danny explained that he had been studying pieces of alien technology that Earth scientists had found on old crash sites. He had figured out how to connect some of these alien parts to their human fusion engine. The combination created energy patterns that Danny had never seen before. He thought it might let their ship do things that normal ships could not do. Lisa reported that the Empire fleet now had less than half their original ships left. The Vorthans were moving in for what looked like the final attack. In maybe 10 minutes, there would be no Empire ships left alive. Amy was still listening to the desperate calls for help coming from the Empire Admiral. The Admiral was promising anything to anyone who would come to help them. Jake looked at Ben and saw the decision forming in his captain's eyes. Ben was the kind of man who could not watch people die when he might be able to save them. It did not matter that the Empire had treated humans like they were not important. What mattered was that people were dying, and maybe they could help. Ben walked to the center of the bridge and looked at each member of his crew. He told them they were going to try something that might get them all killed. He said anyone who wanted to object could speak up now. Nobody said anything. Jake felt proud to serve with these people. They all knew the risks, but they were willing to try anyway. Ben gave the order that would change everything. He told Danny to prepare his modified engine systems for combat. He told Lisa to plot a course straight into the battle. He told Amy to send a message to the Empire Admiral saying help was coming. Ben did not know if they could actually help, but he knew they had to try. Danny Rodriguez ran back to the engine room as fast as he could move through the ship's narrow halls. His heart was beating hard and his hands were shaking, but he knew exactly what he needed to do. For 3 weeks he had been working on modifications that most people would think were crazy. He had taken alien technology that nobody really understood and connected it to human fusion engines in ways that should not work. The engine room was hot and filled with the sound of humming machinery. Danny's 2 assistants, Kevin Moore and Susan Price, were already at their stations waiting for orders. They had helped Danny build his modifications and they trusted him, even though they did not fully understand what they had created. Danny started activating systems that had never been tested in real combat situations. On the bridge, Jake watched their small ship accelerate toward the massive battle. The Empire ships looked like floating cities compared to Dawn's Edge. The Vorthan vessels were smaller but still 10 times bigger than the human ship. Jake felt like they were flying a mosquito into a fight between elephants. He wondered if anyone would even notice them before they got destroyed. Admiral Zexhai, commanding the Empire flagship, received Amy's message and could not believe what he was reading. The humans were actually coming to help them. His tactical officers had told him the human ship was tiny and had almost no weapons. According to Empire records, Earth was a primitive planet with basic technology. Zexhai thought the humans were being brave but stupid. The Admiral watched the human ship on his screens and shook his head. The Dawn's Edge was accelerating directly toward the largest group of Vorthan ships. It looked like the humans were planning to ram the enemy vessels. Zexhai respected their courage, but he knew it would be suicide. One human ship could not possibly change the outcome of this battle. Tactical Officer Kelly Brooks sat at her station on Dawn's Edge and watched the enemy ships getting closer. The Vorthan vessels were firing at Empire ships and had not noticed the small human vessel yet. Kelly had been tracking their weapon patterns and shield frequencies. She was trying to find some weakness they could exploit, but the Vorthan technology was unlike anything in human databases. Danny's voice came over the ship's communication system. He told Captain Harrison that his modifications were ready, but he was not sure what would happen when he activated them. The alien technology they had incorporated was still mostly a mystery to human science. Danny had figured out how to make it work with their systems, but he could only guess at what the results would be. Ben gave Danny permission to activate whatever he had built. The captain figured they were probably going to die anyway, so they might as well try something that had never been done before. Ben had always believed that humans survived by trying things that others thought were impossible. Maybe today would prove him right, or maybe today would be their last day alive. In the engine room, Danny's hands moved over controls that he had designed himself. He activated the fusion drive at maximum power and then began bringing the alien components online. Energy readings on his instruments jumped to levels that should have been dangerous. The whole ship began to vibrate in ways that felt wrong, but Danny kept pushing forward with his activation sequence. Something extraordinary began to happen to Dawn's Edge. The ship started to look strange on everyone's sensors. Imperial tactical officers reported that the human vessel was becoming translucent like a ghost. Vorthan sensors could not get solid readings on the ship's position or speed. The small human vessel seemed to be existing in several places at the same time. Jake felt dizzy as reality around their ship began to bend and shift. Through the bridge windows, space looked different. Stars appeared to be in multiple positions, and the enemy ship seemed to be moving through dimensions that should not exist. Jake realized that Danny's modifications had done something to space and time around their vessel. They were no longer completely in normal reality. Kelly watched her tactical displays and saw something that should have been impossible. Fourth-hand energy beams were passing right through their ship without causing any damage. The weapons that had been destroying Empire battleships were hitting Dawn's Edge and doing nothing. Their ship had somehow become partially immune to physical attacks by existing between dimensions. The largest Vorthan warship fired its main weapon directly at the approaching human vessel. The purple energy beam was powerful enough to destroy a city, but when it hit Dawn's Edge, the beam just passed through the ship like it was made of light. Vorthan tactical officers reported to their commanders that their sensors could not understand what they were seeing. Ben realized they had a chance to do something that might actually matter. He ordered Lisa to plot a collision course with the Vorthan flagship. If their ship could pass through enemy weapons, maybe they could also pass through enemy hulls and cause damage from the inside. It was a desperate plan, but Ben could not think of anything else to try. Danny watched his instruments as the ship moved closer to the enemy flagship. The alien technology was creating energy fields that he did not understand, but he could feel that something important was building up. The modifications were drawing power from sources that should not exist and channeling it into their ship's structure in ways that defied physics. Dawn's Edge flew directly at the Vorthan flagship and passed through its outer hull like the enemy ship was made of water. For a few seconds, the human vessel existed inside the enemy ship while also being outside it. Jake could see Vorthan crew members through the bridge windows, but they looked like ghosts. Everything felt dreamlike and impossible. Then Danny reversed his modifications and brought their ship back into normal space-time. Dawn's Edge materialized inside the Vorthan flagship, with all its mass and momentum intact. The kinetic impact tore through the enemy vessel's internal structure and caused massive explosions throughout the ship. The Vorthan flagship began breaking apart from the inside, while Dawn's Edge emerged from the other side undamaged. The destruction of their flagship sent shockwaves through the entire Vorthan fleet. Their ships had energy shields that could stop any weapon, but they had no defense against an attack that ignored the laws of physics. Vorthan commanders ordered an immediate retreat as they tried to understand what had just happened to them. Amy listened to communications from both fleets and heard amazement and fear in every voice. The Empire officers were celebrating, but they also sounded confused about what they had witnessed. The Vorthans were transmitting emergency codes that Amy's computer translated as requests for immediate analysis of unknown technology. Both sides knew they had seen something that should not be possible.